Once in a small town, there was an old graveyard that everyone had forgotten. It was hidden behind thick trees and overgrown weeds, and no one dared to visit. The townspeople whispered about it, saying it was cursed. They warned children to stay away. One rainy evening, a curious girl named Sarah decided to explore the graveyard. She had heard the stories and wanted to see for herself. As she walked through the dark trees, she felt a chill in the air, but her excitement pushed her forward. When she reached the graveyard, she found crumbling tombstones covered in moss. The names were barely readable, and some stones were tilted as if they were trying to escape. As she wandered, she noticed one grave that seemed different. It was freshly dug, even though no one had been there for years. Suddenly, Sarah heard whispers around her. They grew louder, swirling in the cold air. "Leave this place," they warned. She shivered but stepped closer to the grave, her curiosity overwhelming her fear. As she leaned in, the ground beneath her trembled. The whispers turned to cries. Sarah stumbled back, her heart racing. The earth shifted and a bony hand broke through the soil, reaching for her. Terrified, she turned and ran, the cries echoing in her ears. She dashed through the trees, not stopping until she was back in town. Out of breath, she warned everyone about what she saw. But they only laughed. "It's just an old story," they said. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she heard a soft tapping at her window. Her heart sank as she remembered the whispers. Gathering courage, she peeked outside. There, in the moonlight, stood a shadowy figure, its hand still reaching toward her, calling her back to the graveyard. From that night on, Sarah couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the whispers returned, haunting her dreams. She knew she had awakened something that was meant to stay buried. Weeks passed, and Sarah grew weaker. The townspeople noticed her change but didn't understand. One evening, she decided she had to return to the graveyard to make things right. With a trembling heart, she entered the dark woods again. This time, the grave was fully open, and the cries filled the air, louder than ever. As she approached, the figure emerged fully from the grave, a ghostly face twisted in sorrow. "You disturbed my rest," it wailed. "Now you must join me." Before Sarah could run, the spirit reached out and pulled her down into the grave. The whispers stopped, and the graveyard was silent once more, forgotten by the town. Years later, if you dared to wander near the old graveyard, you might hear a soft whisper carried by the wind. It sounds like a girl's voice, warning you to stay away, just like the townspeople always had.